I don't, you know, we can always. Conditional zoning on anything anyway. Okay. Welcome back. I'll call to order the work session for the Pinehurst Village Council of November 18th, 2025. We'll begin with a general business discussion. We have 4 items on that. Item A is a discussion regarding a potential PDO zoning text amendment to create a planned unit development designation. Doug, are you going to begin this? It was your memo, I believe.
Yep, yeah, so I'll cover this. We actually got a preview with Alex a little bit earlier, and so he stole a little bit of my thunder, but I'll be okay with it. I worked really hard on this PowerPoint, and now we skipped most of it, but I'm going to make you listen to it anyway. All right, so what is a planned unit development? It is a master plan zoning district for different areas so that we can include different mixes of uses, whether that's residential, commercial, civic, open. It gives council a flexibility to approve a master plan for an area that they feel is beneficial to the community. So some characteristics are it's comprehensive, it has to be for the whole site. It allows for flexibility in the design, more so than the standard zoning that Alex mentioned earlier. So it allows for some creative layouts so you can cluster things in different areas and also have preservation of natural resources, including open space and trails and the ability to connect those within the development, but also to areas outside of the development. And we also will ensure that it is compatible with the surrounding community. So why do these exist? Because of their size, location, complexity, it's not possible to make the master plan that is envisioned by the developer that the community is supportive of. That cannot happen within the existing limitations of Euclidean zoning. So that's why it exists. So what does a planned unit development do? It consolidates control. So it allows the council to receive a master plan document from a developer and gives you the ability to negotiate with them on items that you think are appropriate or vital to the community. You coordinate the details as well, so everything within the master plan is available for discussion, whether that's setbacks, the amount of open space, the size of the lots, all those things can be negotiated with the developer. And by doing that, you can address compatibility with the surrounding neighborhoods. You can make sure that you can mitigate effects of traffic, other environments, things like that. And it optimizes the benefits. So the flexibility that it allows helps the council to decide whether or not it's the best fit for the community, and you have full control over that. So I think we kind of covered this already, but the current zoning doesn't allow it because it's restricted, and it's whether it be hard to negotiate open space or allow some connectivity, and it allows proactive shaping of the development. So there is a draft PUD document in the agenda packet. We can kind of go through it as in much detail as you would like. One of the things that I wanted to point out was how the process would work. So initially, if there were a developer that wanted to come forward and meet with the village, we'd have a pre-application meeting. They kind of share their ideas, what they want to do with the area, and if they felt like there was substantial support for it, they can move forward to a neighborhood meeting that we discussed earlier tonight with the adoption of the PDO. So they'd go out and inform all the neighbors what their intention was. At that point, they would submit an application to the village, which would also require a master plan. So that master plan includes all details from size of lots to setbacks to open space to anything you could think of would be required to be put in that. From that point, staff would review it as well as the technical review committee. Once they received feedback from the TRC, there would be another neighborhood community meeting. After that, there would be the public hearings by both planning and zoning and the village council. And when council felt comfortable, there would be a council decision. If it was approved, there would be a final development plan based on the master plan, and then the binding PUD master plan would have to be adopted and recorded on the parcel. Kind of ran through that really quick, so I'll open it up now for questions, and then we can dive into the actual document a little bit.
Based on the slide that said all what it does, I know it was a couple of slides back, what it does. Will this also solve obesity and male pattern baldness?
It could.
It could. Doug, okay. I mean, it just seems like incredible. We sort of covered, but we might want to discuss, drill down a little on what Dr. Morgan brought up earlier, in that it was in years ago, and then we took it out because of events and changes and all. Made no longer necessary. So I'm not sure what makes it necessary at this moment. I don't want to shut the door, but I thought I heard you use the phrase "community supportive of," and were you meaning that in a generic sense, or were you meaning that in a specific sense?
So I mean that if someone brought forward a PUD, there would have to be community support for the master plan that's being proposed.
So it's not developer specific?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So we don't know what would happen, I guess.
Yeah. So sorry to interrupt, but
Go ahead.
In the last few months, we've had 3 different development proposals come forward to staff, and these 3, how can we possibly make this work with the existing Euclidean zoning? And the answer is it's very difficult, and so PUD would allow the flexibility for projects that, there might be some controversy in some of them, but I think for the most part, definitely 2 of them, there would be wide community support for them.
What prevents us under the ability to exercise our conditional zoning authority from handling a proposal since?
What are the limitations of conditional zoning that would not allow this to go forward and therefore requires this?
Yeah. So under conditional zoning, you still have to have the underlying zoning that matches it. So you can add conditions to it, but it's still limited to a certain extent.
You cannot change, the conditional zoning, you can't impact the use table very much.
But
Whereas in a planned unit development, you can put down any use table you want. You can selectively go to the use table
Council
and
can
restrict and/or allow certain uses that you may not have been allowed in that underlying zoning district in a conditional zoning.
Right.
In the conditional zoning, if it's residential only,
No,
I'm asking if the property is zoned for residential,
right.
okay? In conditional zoning, if someone comes forth and says, I'd like to, it's R30 now, I'd like to change that to R10, would that fall?
That's a rezoning.
That's a rezoning,
That's not a conditional zoning.
okay? So then give me a conditional zoning example, because we seem to do a lot of conditional
Well,
zoning.
we had one. There was a parcel on McIntyre that was zoned a certain way for a certain type of professional development, and the applicant wanted to rezone it into a conditional zoning district to change the parameters
remember
of the
that.
design of the building and the layout and so forth and so on.
Yeah.
As it turned out, it just didn't work out as far as the neighborhood was concerned.
Yeah, the planning and zoning board rejected it.
The objective of a PUD, I don't want to steal any thunder here.
Go ahead.
Yeah, the way I look at it, whenever we have a development proposal coming forward from a developer, there's what the developer values, and generally they value things in a dollar and cents point of view. And the items that are important to them are density, uses, lot sizes, setbacks, block lengths, street design, and so forth. Those things that affect the bottom line for their development. The things on the other side of the equation that are important to the community, we aren't always able to affect very easily within our current zoning. In other words, those are like open space, amenities require a certain amount, type of amenities, conservation or environmental protection, maybe connectivity as far as roadways and/or certain type of access, maybe higher quality architectural underground utilities, clear and enforceable standards, and an organization to do that. We can't enforce that within our standard zoning districts very easily. Within
But-
UD, we have the capability to negotiate every single one of those.
But correct me if I'm wrong, council can approve rezoning as long as it's consistent with a comprehensive plan and complies with the general statutes.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So if we had someone, not R30 to R10, but someone who wanted to change a zoning because they wanted to do something that was not a permitted use,
Within the previous zoning district?
yes,
Yes, okay, keep going.
we could approve that.
You'd have to create a new lot and create new zoning just for that.
Yeah, but that's how we would do it.
I mean, I think you answered one of my questions, which is what is the difference between conditional zoning and a PUD?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question, and I think it's probably appropriate because conditional zoning is the most familiar with similar to PUD, but like Jack said, if the underlying zoning was, say, residential, you couldn't have any non-residential uses in there at all, when there might be a very good reason that a community supports or be good community planning for something else to be in there.
But why couldn't we change that zoning as the council? That's where I'm missing the connection here, because this body is the ultimate decider on some of these zoning requests, and we can say yay or nay after it goes through a process with planning and zoning and public hearings. We've seen that happen in the past with this short-term rental example. We saw it happen recently, as you said, on McIntyre and Fields. We saw it happen just last week with the Planning and Zoning Board rejected a request to take a property that was zoned R30 down to R15 because two neighbors objected. So I'm still trying to grasp as to what has this solved Mel Patton boldness. So go ahead.
Well, I think a PUD provides an incredible amount of flexibility as far as negotiating terms and conditions, and those conditions can be extremely valuable to the community, as well as you can negotiate conditions that are valuable to the developer at the same time. Different type of uses within the parcel, maybe different lot sizes, maybe different types of setbacks. You can vary things as you please and as what makes sense for the parcel and the development.
So one thing that is much more difficult to do with standard zoning, and even if you had to cut up the parcels in all different ways, is to negotiate this open space and buffer connectivity. So if you wanted to have trails that connected through your development, you'd have to have these very oddly shaped lots going through your whole development that were only dedicated to open space. It makes it much cleaner and a much better product to be able to look at it comprehensively as an entire master plan.
Right. But as a practical matter, are there places in the existing village limits other than Village Place and Pinehurst South where this is likely to apply?
Yes.
There may be one or two parcels that were larger parcels that it could apply, yes.
And
In the village of Pinehurst, okay.
Yes,
yep.
in our
And there have been some that are right on our borders that are currently within county jurisdiction, but have expressed interest in annexing.
That's kind of what I want to dive into a little bit, because it's not just what we currently have, it's what's going to be annexed. Sure. So it's a document that's going to cover that. Back in March, I think it was March, we were approached by the developers in Pine Wild about Phase 4, and each of us had a meeting with them.
May, I remember.
Okay, and that was an individual meeting or a meeting with two, that kind of stuff.
I remember.
So we didn't violate any of the laws on this. But, and I certainly wasn't in y'all's meeting, but meeting I had there was the understanding that they wanted to move forward, but one of their things in their business plan was that it was more lucrative for them to be able to market it as a a Pinehurst resident versus West End, being in the county, that kind of stuff. And the way the rules are for annexation is that you have to have 100% buy-in to be able to annex. Well, if one person owns that or one entity owns it, then it's pretty easy to get 100% buy-in for them to then be annexed. Well, then that allows us to have our zoning requirements for them. Well, what has occurred, and I've seen written communication on this, is that we didn't move forward with a PRD. And I'm still not sure exactly why. I've heard Jack, you say it wasn't necessary. I've heard Pat say I get why it fell out, and I still don't. But what has occurred now is they have moved forward with by right in the county. So, by our efforts to negotiate hard or whatever it is on here or exclude this, they are now going to fall under the county zoning. So it's not in Pinehurst. We have zero say in this. But county zoning allows just about double the density of what ours would. So we have a 400-acre lot. If there was going to be 400 houses, it's round math here, they can end up going out to 800 houses. I'm not saying they will. And we've got no way of stopping this. This is a swing and a miss. If we had done the PRD from the start, they would have had that because that's what they needed to make this happen.
So are we looking for responsibility, blame, or what are we looking for?
No, what I'm saying is we didn't do this. We're having a way forward now.
Jeff,
Okay? We missed this, and it's going to potentially be a significant amount more density of what's going on, and it's going to be right on our border. And I don't really care if it's part of Pinehurst or not part of Pinehurst. That density is still part of our community.
Jeff, I think you and I did that meeting together, and I have one partially different recollection, which was they wanted the right to zone one way, but also have us tell them in advance, if down the road, because they're looking at this over 10 years, we see demand for different structures, we want the pre-approval to do
I
that.
understand that, and I won't disagree with that. But the bottom line was they needed a PUD on this. They needed a PRD is what they were, I think, my recollection on the conversation.
But two other things. Number one, they could have come to us and asked to be annexed now. They didn't. And number two, if they were to go out and build something that we don't like, we're not obligated to annex them. Your point being, they're still going to be on our border.
That's right.
Yeah. And
Okay, so
that's-
ultimately, what we have here is zero control of what's occurring. And we have no leverage to move into this. We did before.
Not sure I understand. Are you afraid something inappropriate will be developed?
I'm certainly not afraid of an SOB being there, okay? What I'm saying on here is that people talk about density, okay? And I've heard this over and over again. And when I ran, I talked about we can't stop growth. We want to make sure it's smart growth. This right here, we have relinquished any sort of oversight that would limit the density. They are now falling under the county. That's 400 acres that's right on our border, okay? And if we had gone through with a PUD at the start of this and made that continuing part of it, which I didn't realize it was not quite on there until late in the process, but by not having that, they went ahead and moved with the county. All they wanted on there was the PUD to be able to work with us. So there are side effects to it. We're not an island.
Well,
We have to work with other people.
I have a little different recollection. They were always asking, at that time, they mentioned a PRD. I realize that's a, happy
it's
versus
semantics.
glad,
Yeah,
but
it's-
nevertheless, one. Two, I remember saying to them, well, look, if you've got your community buy-in on this, that would have an impact on me at the time. And they made it seem like there probably wouldn't be much of a problem. And we never heard back from them again from the May meeting. It was a May meeting that I was in. But I did hear from some residents who have become worried about what is the village telling these folks they could do. And I would say to them, look, we met with them. I personally said, if you're going to have the same zoning as is in Pinewall now, I'd probably be fine with it. But you're not in Pinehurst right now. And my immediate concern, if you're going to put people in line, would be our current residents first. And the few residents, and I maybe have heard from a dozen, okay, not many, but they're all Pinewall, they're worried because they're having some other issues with the developer that they're not happy with. They are concerned that they don't understand this, and they ask the question of, I guess a general question they'll ask is, why? And I don't have good answers for all those things. I'm not totally opposed to this. I'm going to just say that. I just want to see us have more time to think about this before we move forward, because I believe if we were to adopt this without a proposal in front of us, we could be interpreted as putting our finger on the scale for a developer rather than being objective between our residents and a developer.
I specifically asked the question, is this a developer type of thing, when Alex was here? And the answer was no. This is a PUD that we develop on there. I've got no problem with it being thought out and make sure we're doing it smart. But I think it needs to be done earlier versus later, okay? We have already missed this one, okay?
So are we doing an autopsy? Is that what we're trying to do here?
Jack, you keep on going back to that. My point of this is that we missed this. This council missed it, and right now the end result, no matter how you want to cut it, autopsy, death report, blame, whatever it is, the end result is that they have the potential for double density than it would have been if we had had it.
Got it.
Okay?
Got
That's
it.
a swing and a miss. This council did it.
Okay,
and
got
Pat
it.
said before, there's no mulligans, right? I sure wish we had one for this one.
I 100% got it. Now let's talk about what our development ordinance might be in the future.
I have no problem with that.
Okay, well, why don't we move on to that?
Sure.
Because that's not productive. What's productive is providing a vehicle for developers going forward for us to carefully design something that makes sense for them and for us.
I think that is
That's where-
important.
that's-
I do agree, that is important. My point on bringing up the rest of the stuff, as you want to describe as an autopsy, is to understand that there are time constraints of what goes on. There are effects of not doing anything, okay? So we have to make sure that we're moving forward with it. But yes, let's move forward. Thank you.
And I think it is important to note that, this is a text amendment that would apply to any parcel that you could potentially, someone could request it to be applied to. It's not for any specific project in the village. It is an overall option for anyone in the future.
But it's
Now,
not
let me
for the
add-
village.
Let me add, I'm sort of Mr. Support here as far as Doug goes. When this became a viable requirement, and a viable requirement means that there appears to be some developers who need this, and we probably need it too. This was in the summertime. I started to research with various municipalities within the state of North Carolina and elsewhere, along with counties, and found that many, if not all, had a PUD, PRD, however you want to express it, in their development ordinances, and they're very varied. That's a loose term. They're very varied in what they allow, what they don't allow, but they tend to be exactly what this is, which is a shell. It's a shell that has certain parameters that are important to us, but it's a shell that we could build something within. We could allow for different types of development. And I think they do a very good job of this shell. This is a very good shell, in my opinion, of a development ordinance. It is not fully formed for any particular developer. It's not fully formed for any particular parcel. It's not even fully formed as to whether it's commercial, residential, or a combination of residential and commercial. It could be a bunch of different things. And I think just like we put the Highway Corridor Overlay District on the books with this PDO, we can't apply it because it happens to be the state will not let us apply it. We should put this on the books as soon as possible so that we could apply it if in fact the opportunity presents itself. So that's my
Yeah, that's very accurate. At a very, very high level, a PUD just allows someone to come in with a master plan, and if you like it, you get to approve it. If you don't like it, you get to negotiate it, and if you never get to a point where you agree on something, it's denied, and we move on to something else.
Let me
it's
point
that simple.
out a couple things that Doug had mentioned. In fact, that one chart that had the process on it, that is significantly different from a current process in the sense that there are two neighborhood meetings in this one here. So in other words, should a proposal come forward from a developer for a particular development, and they want to do it a certain way, they put that development proposal together. They have a neighborhood meeting, number one, to give the concept. So we have the opportunity, we being the council and the other members of the staff, have the opportunity to hear from the community as to what they think that proposal should be, where it's flawed, where it's good, and so forth. And then they put together a more detailed plan. And then there's another neighborhood meeting later on. That's very unusual. We do not have two neighborhood meetings in any other development process that I know of. Correct me if I'm wrong, Doug.
No, that's correct.
We have one neighborhood meeting for site plans, for major subdivisions, et cetera, et cetera. This has two neighborhood meetings, which means that we will hear from the community as to whether or not they agree or don't agree with the proposal. That's a major change in my opinion. It's a little onerous on a developer, but it provides the village the opportunity to hear about the community's thoughts on the proposed development early on. So that's why I'm not worried about anything moving through too quickly, and I think this is the appropriate way to do it.
So I think it could be helpful if we briefly go over the proposed text. I mean, it's 9 pages, so I don't want to read every line. But if you follow me along on the screen, the first section is just establishing the district, gives us the authority to do it, and recognizes that it's governed by the ordinance and whatever master plan is adopted by the council.
One question. Are we adopting a PUD for the Village of Pinehurst corporate limits?
It would cover our corporate limits and any, I mean, it's a zoning, it's a PDO, it's part of our
Wherever
zoning
we have
text, so it would
zoning
be the
authority, which
ETJ.
is,
It would cover the
ETJ
ETJ.
right,
and our corporate limits.
yes.
So it doesn't automatically apply to a piece of property that's in the county that we do not have yet.
Correct. They have to ask for annexation.
Right, so when someone asks for annexation, we have to assign zoning to that parcel. And so,
Would the council assign the zoning? The
yes,
zoning? So then, and if an application comes forward and they're doing something different than the current zoning, or what the majority of the council thinks should be the zoning for that area, we would say, change your zoning from R10 to R15, whatever the heck it is, or you're not going to get a green light. Is that how that would work?
yeah, in general, for annexations, you get to assign the zoning. What we're talking about here is, rather than assigning a specific type of zoning, is that you're looking at a master plan that includes the zoning plus all the other amenities and features that you may want to have any way in on. Does that make sense?
I think the process is, you can accept the annexation, but you have to apply, if you accept it, you have to apply a zoning district to it within a certain period of time. I think it's 60 days or something like that.
Yeah, and typically they happen simultaneously, like one's one vote and one is the very next item on the agenda.
And it's sort of an agreement ahead of time with the developer or the parcel owner that if in fact we accept their annexation request, then this is the development ordinance, it's either the zoning district and or the PUD with all its detail that will apply to your parcel.
Are we not obligated to accept any vested rights they have unless we say we will not annex you unless you change them? Unless the person coming to us is willing to change a right they already have?
So we do not have to accept, we don't have to accept any annexation request. So in a specific situation, yes, someone could get their entitlements from the county. They would have vested rights in that. They could come to the village and request that those be accepted as part of the annexation. If we did not want to annex that property, or if we didn't like the entitlements and they didn't agree to change that, we don't have to annex the property.
Right. And so to Jeff's example, if the developer had a plan by which they were going to build 800 units on this parcel, and we didn't like that, we said, we'll be happy to annex you, but you have to give that up.
Correct. In the same breath, if we don't agree to it and they still want to build those 800 houses, they still have the by right to do it.
They're going to build the 800 houses, and they're going to be on our border.
Not going to be 800 houses.
No, I mean,
Whatever it is, they're the ones who are sort of in the driver's seat. They're saying, look, we want to do X, and we want you to annex us. And if you don't do that, we're just going to stay where we are, and we're going to do X. I don't think, I mean, if I was, that would be my position.
I think that is their position, but the issue that I think we're overlooking here is they approached us about wanting to be annexed, okay? We didn't approach them.
Correct.
They came to us because it was in their favor to do that. By us not getting the PUD in there, they have now decided to go by right with the county. Okay, so we've lost control over our regulations
Yeah,
on there.
I don't see it that way.
Okay, well,
I see it differently. I hear what you're saying. I don't remember that meeting as to if you don't do something for us, we're going to the county. I never heard them say that. I never heard them even insinuate it. They said, here's what we're thinking about. Here's our drawings. I remember the drawings. You probably remember them, Doctor.
I do.
Okay. And I thought, well, you know, there's some things I like. There's a few things I didn't like, and I made a comment about it. And then radio silence from them.
That's right, radio silence.
Yeah,
I
so,
mean, it was like they went in the witness protection program, and we're waiting here, and then all of a sudden, they're at our doorstep and saying, "Oh, we may be in touch with you, but we're talking to the county."
right, so I want to move past the blame game,
Right.
but their understanding was that we were going to do a PRD as part of our PDO update. And we ultimately did not do that, and I think at that point, they decided that it might be in their best interest to go with the county.
And Doug, I think the reason we came to not do it was two things. One, there was this mystery of what happened to it last time, which we sort of solved tonight, okay? And there was the idea that this was going to be done for them, as opposed to being done for our residents, or without sort of checking with our residents, so to speak. And we get this, you know, over the transom comments from some people, which is what honestly gave me cold feet about it.
Yeah, just to reiterate, this is not for any specific development, it is for
I know it's
anything.
but we're really talking about the 800-pound gorilla in the room here.
Yeah,
Okay.
keep beating around the bush, but yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and like has been mentioned, go ahead, Barb.
We are now, but this also applies to residential territory as much as 30 acres, not 400. We are also talking about mixed use and commercial at 5 acres each. So, I mean, there's more application to this for the future than just what has transpired in the last several months. And so I think the bigger picture is important.
And I think it goes back to what Jack was saying. Okay, the move forward here, is a PUD necessary on there? I certainly see value in that, and I would encourage that the staff works to develop something with that and to have that as an amendment for the future. I think that is a positive step.
Okay, are we at a point where I can continue kind of outlining the
Go ahead.
the proposed ordinance? Okay, section 662 here is outlining the purpose and intent. I think we've kind of covered that, but ultimately it's allows the flexibility to have the village ask for what it wants, and either developer and the village can agree to something that works out that benefits both parties, or it ultimately doesn't, and we move on. What we did specifically do in this PUD was that we added options for a strictly residential one, a mixed use, and a commercial employment one.
Let me interrupt for a minute. Strictly is not how it reads. It reads predominantly residential.
And
With the
that would be
option,
that
with
would
the
be-
option of neighborhood serving non-residential uses.
I see that quite often in other PUDs, where a larger residential development, they carve off a little portion of it, it's going to be the shopping location for
I
this
get it.
residential neighborhood, small grocery stores, et cetera, et cetera.
get it.
So that's very common within PUDs to have a set aside for the commercial part.
Well, while we might like the initial suggestion of what might be the small shopping area, okay? Today's Trader Joe's is tomorrow's vape shop, okay?
Well, that's why you have a master plan that they have to
Yeah.
adhere to.
Neighborhood meetings.
Yeah, it also, it could be other things other than commercial, so it could be institutional uses like a church or, or
Right.
maybe their amenities for the location. All right, so applicability. So the most important thing here is that a master plan is required. Everything has to be spelled out. And that the master plan will be the zoning function of the PUD area. So it controls the uses, the dimensional standards, open space phasing, and infrastructure. Any questions on this 663
Yeah,
section?
yeah. So when I write that plan, I'm the developer, can I say I'm either going to build X or I'm going to build Y?
So the village could say, we'll leave you the option of X or Y, or we could say, we only want X, or we only want Y.
So again, I can ask for the permission, but the village retains the ultimate control over whether to grant that.
Yes.
You have so much X and so much Y, and you can't vary either one of them up, for example.
Yeah, you have complete legislative authority. So in order for someone to apply under section 664, you have to have control, you have to have maps, surveys, general layout plan, outline your housing and mixed-use plan, dimensional standards, open space, utilities, traffic, phasing, architectural design, your HOA, POA documents, stormwater master plan, and project narrative. So we feel like,
Yeah, I wouldn't diminish the HOA requirements, because having been a president of an HOA for more or less 20 years on and off, HOA responsibilities for the infrastructure is very important, and to make sure that they in fact are responsible and have the duty to maintain the infrastructure is very important. We see it within Pinehurst from here and there, that some HOAs are struggling, and they come to the village, asking for us to take their streets and things like that. So you can actually, within this particular scheme, make sure that there's sufficient enforcement capability that they can in fact maintain their infrastructure.
and sometimes HOAs have even more strict rules than we might even have in a master plan or
Very common.
whatever. Yeah.
Right.
All right, moving on to section 665, this is alternative design standards. So what we're saying here is we want flexibility. We understand that that's kind of the goal behind this, is that you have the ability to ask for things and we have the ability to say, yes, we like it, or no, we don't. So we have later on in this a list of standard development standards that we wanted in it, but there are some abilities to deviate from that. So we listed those here.
Yes, hold on, let's just look at those for a minute. So if you're living in Pinewell and you've been there a good while, you drive around there, there's sort of a standard Pinewell setback and yard requirements, and boy, they have a lot of requirements, but that's agreed to under the HOA. Buffing, building size. That's what makes me nervous for the residents, that something is going to deviate, which is a very good word, is permitted deviations, is going to deviate to the community that they've bought into.
Oh, but it's not a guarantee. I mean,
I understand it's not a guarantee, but it's leaving the door ajar.
So what I would say is that you as the council have the ability to approve that master plan, and if you don't like the way it looks, you don't approve it.
if you're convinced by the citizens that it's not the right plan for them, then it won't be approved.
If we had this in the PDO that has now been updated, is it likely that the proposed development in Pinehurst South would have come to us under that guise?
Pinehurst South,
The development that was turned down by planning and zoning initially, and then
Haskins.
came back and has been reformatted.
52
Oh,
McIntyre, is you talking about?
No, that
the
was-
one on- across from Charter Hills, I think.
no, that is within the form-based district. That was the implementation issue there.
So if I wanted to develop something there, I
If
don't,
there had been no form-based district, small area plan controlling that area, if you want to use that word, and we had a PUD, and we had a PD, or we had a PUD, it could have been applied in this way, yes, correctly.
Okay. But, so that we do have a form-based district, we do have a small area plan, both for that and for Village Place.
Yes.
And so whether we approve this or not, this would not impact developments there. Presumably, they are governed by a different set of standards.
It'd be interesting to see if a PUD would appear in those.
Yeah, certainly.
could.
You could request it. So like Village Place, for example, the village core area where we hold our public services building and
Right.
the water tanks and all that. Some of those 4 core areas allow a hotel and some don't. Say we wanted a hotel and it's on the wrong line. If we adopted a PUD, we could, look at that comprehensively and potentially do it. That case is a little different because we could also go back and change the zoning.
John, to kind of, one of the most important things guiding development in those areas are the small area plans, because we endlessly had meetings and plan-a-paloozas and,
Right.
big meetings where people put
Extensive development
yeah,
of
you
those
name it.
guidelines.
So there is a community expectation as to what's going to be developed in those areas, and that is reflected in the small area plans. If a PUD were to be proposed in that area that deviated significantly from those small area plans, I think that the village community would say, wait a minute, what are you doing? This is not what we agreed to through the small area plans. It's sufficiently different. So I think that that is sort of a guiding, overall guiding document, if you will, as far as the type of development that they're looking for. So that in some ways would be,
Well,
it would affect a PUD.
I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of a developer. If they are looking at these, I'll call them hurdles, that they have to jump over if we adopt the PUD, what would make them want to go through all that when they can just do what Dr. Morgan said? They can just live there with the county and Katie bar the door.
Yeah. So we're going
I'm trying to figure out, I'm them. Why would I do anything but start with the county?
I think in this specific example, the issue was being able to use the Pinehurst residential area as a marketing tool, okay? So that you're saying your lot and your house will actually be part of Pinehurst versus the address saying West End. So I think there was value to that. I don't know specifically, I haven't talked to the developer on that.
Okay.
But that's why they approached us. When I asked Bob Kuntz, when he's asking, I said, what's to your advantage? And he specifically said to have the Pinehurst address. And I think John was there for that. Anyway, when it gets to be, so it's not that valuable anymore, they can increase density and make up for it that way and go back to all the discussions that Jack just had. It becomes a math problem, okay? And what's going to work out the best for you. So that's why they would do it. And this is a unique circumstance that it's a 400-acre lot that's right beside our boundaries. How many other times is that going to occur? I don't know, okay? But having a tool here, much like Jack's been discussing here, to be able to work with this and recognizing that, yes, the council still has the final vote on what goes on with it, I think is going to be helpful for the council in the long term.
So, okay, let's take it one more step. They've got these options, and they're going to say, heck, we're going with the county. We're in much more control. Let's say they do the other thing. Let's say they appeal to Pinehurst. They don't wait to start things with the county. And Pinehurst says, we're not particularly fond of what you're proposing. So then they can say, okay, then we'll go to the county too. I mean, they have more bites at the apple before we even get to pick one off the tree. And that's what makes me very uncomfortable about. Again, I don't outright oppose this approach. I just want us to take a little more time about it, because as I think it through and hear the comments,
But
I keep trying to figure out.
The reality is, let's assume that that's a done deal, okay? We're doing this for everyone else, for the future. We're doing this for the future. We're doing this for the unknown that's going to appear next week, next month, next year, 2 years from now, so that we have a tool to actually guide the development the way we want to. That's what we're trying to do here.
They're not all going to be in the county.
What do you mean?
A lot of them will be in
Yeah.
our existing ETJ.
Pinehurst itself.
Yeah.
But but wait a minute, in the ETJ, our zoning applies.
Right, right.
In the county, it doesn't.
Yeah, but I think what Barb's saying is that anyone that owns a parcel in the village of an appropriate size could say, you know, this makes sense for me, and I think it provides a better product for the village and for the community in general, and this is the avenue where they could make that happen.
Yeah, I don't know how many others have had conversations with developers in the last 3 or 4 years that I have. Not a lot, but a few, and they've been speculative. We have an interest in a parcel, a large parcel. This is where it is within your zoning jurisdiction. What do you think? Here's what I'm thinking of doing. And I would, in many cases, in fact, in most cases, we say we don't have a zoning district that really fits that, what you're proposing. We would have to do something very special within a zoning district that we have. Or if we had this PUD, we could say, let's negotiate what makes sense for you and what makes sense for us.
But under the current situation, look at what's occurred over the last 4, 6 years. The Pinehurst South cottages, they came in with one proposal, they got a little blowback, they refined it, and they got it down to that size. The ones Barb just referred to, the Mike Katowski development, he came in with one proposal, I think it was for 65 units. 18 months elapsed, he came back with 41 units because of a lot of issues you raised, Jack.
Don't blame me on that.
I'm not blaming you, I'm crediting you, for God's sakes. We had the situation on McIntyre. It didn't get to us, but the Planning and Zoning Board said, no, we're not going to do this. So he did what he could do. He went to HPC, and he came up with a smaller design that was more Pinehurst-y-like.
Yeah.
We just saw it happen on Monticello. Same thing. What we have in place right now is working for Pinehurst. That's just my take as I look at these.
Sorry, so
Go
we
ahead.
have done a good job of using conditional zoning. And what conditional zoning doesn't allow us to do, like Jack talked about earlier, is change the underlying use. So say Pinehurst South is an area we want to have redeveloped, and it's going to have mixed-use components, it's going to have residential components. If we didn't have a form-based code already in place for that, a PUD would be a perfect situation for that.
Right.
So there are going to be situations where a PUD would be very helpful.
So in a different context tonight, the woman who spoke with regarding the SOBs kind of quoted from our comprehensive plan about preserve and enhance what exists. It struck me, Jack, just from the comment, because you and I met with the McCaskill proposal before it became something that got turned down, before it became something that was
It
by right.
changed, for sure, yeah.
Right. And it changed even against some of your guidance to say, look, that isn't going to fly. Well, they tried it anyway, and it didn't fly.
Exactly.
Okay, all right. It seems to me that maybe at the core of this is some of these developer proposals, they are proposing things that we don't have now. That's why they're having these conversations. If they were proposing more of what we have now, they don't need this.
No, well, they just ask for a rezoning and or use of current zone.
And so the question becomes not, do we have to freeze everything as it is, and can we never have anything new? I don't know, we've got one specific example here. I don't believe for a minute they want to build 800 units, even if they're allowed to, right? They could.
They still need to sell them,
Right.
okay? My point is, we
I'm
have no
gonna start-
control over it, and it is higher density otherwise, okay?
Not going to start for 2 or 3 years, because I got to sell the 77 first, and then who knows? But
And we don't know if there'll be another bite at this apple either, if we
No,
were to get this in there.
understand that. And
So-
if we were to adopt this at some point, they could decide, well, maybe we ought to come talk to Pinehurst again. Yes, they're going and talking to the county, but they're not sticking a shovel in the ground for a couple of years.
No.
Right? So they have flexibility to change their approach I'm I like the idea of the community meetings, but I remember the meetings which were of a different structure with regard to the greens at the Arboretum.
Jack, we
And there,
remember
to
those,
which
don't
there was substantial public opposition, but the council approved them anyway. And one of the reasons I remember that, because I was the last person to speak at the public meeting in this room.
I can't account for either past or future councils' inclinations to approve or not approve certain development.
Nor am I asking you to.
Just have to, vote election day, you have to vote what you think the person's gonna do.
Let me ask you a question. Why don't they just come forward with their plan?
So,
And then we can say, hey, that looks like Pinehurst. Or we can say, you might want to do something X or Y.
I think the reason they haven't is because there has been no mechanism for them to request a zoning for that, because what they want to do is not allowed on any of the zoning districts that we have. I think if we
Can
gave
you,
them the opportunity to say, this is what we're doing, and we invited them in, I think we could have a reasonable and helpful discussion.
can you be at all more specific about what it is you think that they want to do, or what they've said they want to do that would not be allowed? Or that we couldn't accommodate under the existing structure without a PUD?
Right, so the master plan that they showed us, the different areas that they had, this area we want to have a more R20, and this area we want more R15. They wanted some flexibility to, shift that around a little bit. We may not want to allow that, but that's kind of what they were looking for. And I think that they,
And
I'm
reality
kinda
is,
re-
in May, they did not show us that. In May, which is May 20th, when we met, they did not have the design that was also shown to the community later on in June or July, which changed significantly. And no communication was made to the village, to my knowledge, Doug, or the planning department, as to this is a new conceptual, just a generalized, high-level conceptual where we want to go. And so we were flying blind.
I don't want to place too much blame on them, because I've had conversation with them, and the conversation typically has been, they ask for a PRD or some ability to actually make this move forward. And at the time, it's like, well, we're going to do that as part of our PDO process. And when that didn't happen, like I mentioned earlier, I think they got frustrated and said, okay, well, we'll go work with someone else.
But the specific issue was they had lot size A in some places and lot size B in other places, but they said maybe we want to switch that around or change the
Yeah,
proportions.
yeah, so.
And we have no ability, we could have approved a specific plan, but not one where they could move the pieces around on the
Yeah,
board.
so I think what they were asking specifically was, keep the same number of units in each of the different categories, but be able to, move them around on their general plan.
And our existing zoning would not allow for that, but theoretically, we could have approved a PUD that allowed that.
Yes. Yeah,
And so having allowed that, then we might not have gotten exactly what we thought, but we would have set the general boundaries, the general outlines of what the final product was.
true. Also, as part of the negotiation, we could have said, we don't like that, haziness, the unsureness of all that, so we want something a little more firm. So that's all part of the negotiation that we could have had.
God, if we had negotiated with them for a few months, we may have come to an agreement.
And what I'm hopeful is that I can go back to them and say, look, we are making progress on a PUD ordinance. Can we come back to the table and have a discussion?
In my opinion, what's been developed so far is more than satisfactory to put us in a position for the future. I've researched this to death, and Doug knows it. Between other municipalities and the county, they have a PUD too.
But picking up on that, Jack, this is an organization in the specific case that does developments in a lot of places around the country. So they're looking at other places where they've done developments in places that have PUDs. And in essence, they're saying, why not here?
Okay, fine. And now we're working on it. It isn't a trivial matter of developing code. I mean, when you're doing a PDO rewrite, the more things you add, the more difficult it becomes, to tell you the truth. I mean, it was a struggle to get quite honestly, you remember, to get the Highway Corridor Overlay District. In fact, that was removed a couple times, and we had to insist that this is something we have promised the community in a comprehensive plan that we would in fact put together. So we had to get it put back in. So every single new thing we added took time, took a lot of time, as a matter of fact.
I think, I don't know if there's much more to discuss about this. I think,
Yeah,
I've got to,
if you give me 3 more minutes, I'll just finish the rest.
oh,
of
yeah,
the-
go ahead,
the thing.
sorry.
Okay, so section
it's over.
666 is the approval process. I think we covered that pretty well, so I'm not even going to get into it. 667 is modifications to approved PUDs. So, you know, as things get built, there's going to be some changes. So we have an ability for minor changes that would be approved by staff, and then major changes that would have to go to council. So if you want to see, these are the minor ones.
I think I saw in there something, changes in market conditions, so
Where's that?
just above where we are now, if we go page down a little bit.
Oh, modifications may be permitted to ensure flexibility in response to the
market needs, sorry.
evolving market needs.
So there are things that, you know, Alex could approve. For the big things, they would have to come back to council and have council approve those things. Next section, 668, is development standards. So what we have here is a list of specific things that if you're coming before us, you should have these in mind when you come with your proposal. So we had, you know, these are the basic bare bones that we're going to look at when you come before us. So we have tract size, density, mixed use requirements,
Usual suspects.
open space requirements.
Open space is huge. I mean, you can't underestimate how important it is to have a balance of open space versus built-on area, to tell you the truth, within the community, within any development.
What's that the open space thing that gets twisted a lot? What's that the developers use? Where they put all the houses in one corner?
Conservation neighborhood.
Conservation neighborhood,
Neighborhood.
Oh, conservation neighborhood, okay.
which we removed from the comp plan with respect to the ETJ, but not with respect to the village limits, if you will.
Yeah, the reason we removed, one of the reasons, if you'll recall, was that it almost specifically implied that we were going to approve conservation neighborhoods within the ETJ.
Yes.
Focus Area 1, I think. And they were very concerned about that. Without any say-so, we were going to throw a conservation neighborhood districts on top of them. And so it seemed like the right thing to do, to take that implication out of the comprehensive plan.
So open space is one of the requirements that we have in there, and we have specific things of what qualifies for open space, because, you know, we've had the issue where people try to count their stormwater retention basins as open space.
Most importantly, I'm sorry to interrupt,
No, you're good.
what doesn't count towards wet open space? And this is important because right now, we are allowing wetlands to count as open space to qualify when a developer wants to build in a subdivision. And we reduce actually the lot sizes based upon open space. So what doesn't count is wetlands, flood hazard zones, slopes over 20% that do not count towards the open space. That's a big change. It's a big change.
Yeah, and then obviously they're going to have their setbacks, their buffers, the connectivity for any networks or walking facilities, parking, signage, and phasing. So those are all things that they're going to need to address. And sorry, the last one, ownership and maintenance of public spaces or community spaces going forward. So those are all things that they need to address when they come forward with the master plan. So I think we have a pretty good start here on a proposed ordinance. What I would recommend is that we have, you know, a few weeks where we have opportunity for people to listen to this meeting, provide feedback to us. I think we can present this to the Planning and Zoning Board in January just have them weigh in on it. And that could be our next step on moving this forward.
Well, if we're going to present it to them in January, before we present a final product, we will discuss it again. Is that fair?
We could talk about it in our December meeting, for sure.
Well, but if we're going to take some action, it should be either our December meeting or January meeting. Because
I know there's-
going back to your list of meetings and all that stuff, I don't know if you put days next to it. I don't know if that's a 3-month process, a 6-month process. I'm not sure what it is. And I'm also not sure of how the meeting is designed. How is it shaped? Is everybody who lives in our ETJ, which would border on this, as well as people in Pinewald, be invited to those meetings?
So the way it's currently written in the draft ordinance is that it matches the community meeting requirements in our PDO. And I believe that's anyone within a 300-foot radius, if any part of their parcel is on
Expanded
it.
that greatly, right. And/or HOAs that.
Yeah.
Say that again, Jack. What did you just say about HOAs?
And HOAs within that zone.
Yeah.
It's a big expansion. Our current neighborhood requirement usually only relates to abutting adjoining lots.
But if this is the county land that abuts Pinewald,
You're going to the specific item.
I am. I'm trying to decide, does that mean all of Pinewald will be alerted to this, or is it just the houses that border the county?
HOA would be alerted, as well as all the houses that abut, and we know who.
Okay.
Yeah. As the ordinance is written, everyone within 300 feet would have to be notified. And then, and for that specific situation, everyone's going to know about it.
Everyone will know about it.
I mean, I think we have a specific situation, and Doug, I think you've outlined a possible good next step. We have a more generic situation, and as I think, this has much more application to the ETJ. How many 30-acre parcels are there,
Not many. There's a
not
few.
counting Village Place, Pinehurst South?
Not many. There's a few. Not many.
Well, the ETJ's,
Residential, though, some of these tracks we're talking about
Yeah,
for commercial and mixed use at 5 acres.
They're smaller, right,
Yeah.
right.
So.
there's
also,
5,000 acres
just
in the
meta-
ETJ.
I don't want to muddy the waters, but back when there was a PRD in the ordinance, there was a development that was built in CCNC. They want to, move forward with the next phase, so this would be an appropriate use for that as well.
Right, no, there are a couple, but I don't think there are many versus the amount of 30-acre.
Yeah, this
Parcels
is not
that
going to
would-
be used all the time. Okay, so next steps. We'll put this out there, to let people know that we're open to receiving comments on it, and we will work with planning and zoning to get it on their agenda for January and get their feedback on it as well.
And when you say put it out there for comments, is this something we'll put on the website, or?
Yeah, or if you have any other suggestions, but yes, I was thinking we could post it on the website and make note of it.
Kristen can send something out. Pat might even write something about it in the paper, you never know.
Yeah.
Could happen.
And I think it should also be on the next NAC meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a January meeting, but that's,
Yep.
as we're saying, it's not just for one area, it could be any area.
Okay.
Okay?
Anything else?
No?
Good. All right, so moving on to the next item, discuss the 2026 council meeting schedule. This is the same pattern that we've had in the past. I checked with Jeremy and Kevin, our newly elected council members. They didn't have any concerns with moving forward on the schedule. So unless I hear something now, we'll put this on the agenda for approval at next meeting.
Okay.
Here are our list of partners and collaborators.
Yeah,
Right now, we have here listed who's currently on them, but we will need to discuss this at our next meeting. Just want to
Yeah.
make this available.
Doug, I talked with incoming council members and some members here that are remaining here, and mentioned it to others, is that I think maybe I'll run over this verbally and then provide you a copy, and I want to hear if there's anybody has a better idea. And go right down the list, the NC DOT SMPO would remain as it is. The North Carolina State Government Legislative Actions, we'd substitute Jeremy Hooper for Dr. Morgan. The Tri-Cities Work Group, we'd substitute Jeremy for Jack Farrell. We'd leave Moore County Economic Development Partnership as it is. On the Pinehurst Resort and USGA, major golf events, marketing promotions, we'd substitute Fitzpatrick for Farrell. Moore County NCDOT, we've talked in the past about designating John Taylor and someone to work with him on this as we continue our talks with NCDOT, particularly on the traffic circle. And I think the conclusion is that Jeremy Hooper would be the best person to join John on that, and I would step back on the Moore County schools, PR events and programs primarily. That would be Kevin Fitzpatrick. On the Central Pines Regional Council, we'd replace Dr. Morgan with Kevin Fitzpatrick. The Business in the Village would remain with Barb. The Welcome Center Services would remain with John Taylor. The Business in the Village and the Chamber of Commerce specifically would remain with Barb Ficklin, because she's also doing the Pinehurst Business Partners, so it's a natural fit. The National Park Service, we'd substitute for Jack Farrell, Kevin Fitzpatrick. For the regional for First Health, the obvious fit for replacing Dr. Morgan would be Kevin Fitzpatrick, given his medical background. And the Regional Land Use Advisory Commission, which I'll admit I didn't know a couple of years ago and it came in handy this last year or two. We replace Jack with Jeremy Hooper, who obviously just served on the Land Use Planning Committee for the Moore County and has been on our Planning and Zoning Board. The Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, it was myself and Jack was the person who really attended them. I think Jeremy, who's currently a member of it, would be a natural fit to be the liaison. And on the Beautification Committee, obviously, we continue with Barb Ficklin, who's done an incredible job of tracking that and working with them on everything.
So, Pat, that's great. We will, we can put this on there, and so for our next meeting, it can be an easy approval.
Next meeting, we can formalize it.
Just one thing, we added the Dornoch Scotland Mutual Benevolence Agreement, so if you want to think about someone to.
Yes, we do have to think about someone who might want to do that. Let me think about that. Could be myself or John Taylor. Okay. Scotland, good catch. Okay.
Our very last agenda item, which is kind of a dud for Jeff and Jack, sorry, it's kind of boring, but we have on here, so we have our retreat for council in December, and I'm trying to be very careful. I don't want to prescribe anything to council. I want it to be more of a brainstorming, open session for you guys to provide feedback, ideas, whatever, and then from that, staff can take those ideas, flesh them out a little bit, and we can talk about them more at our January retreat meeting. But to make sure that we do have something to talk about and we're not just showing up and like, hey, what are we doing? Here's a list of some items that have been brought up over the last several months that people have said, oh, let's talk about it at the retreat. So we have continued discussion on the fire rescue response. someone brought up speed cameras, that might be a short discussion. Continued SDR compliance and monitoring, and as well as nuisance law enforcement. So technically two different things, but related. Downtown events, parking garage, redevelopment of Village Place, all under promote a thriving business community. Under transportation, looking at our multimodal priorities. Under environment, looking at stormwater management runoff. Cultural, recreational, active living, parks and rec priority capital projects. A couple of those we talked about.
Let's definitely add, we'll call them friends of organizations, so we have it there as a bullet.
Yep, perfect place for that.
Okay, for the
Also,
groups.
Jack emailed me this afternoon and said, we should also have the library and then transition to opening the new library as well as
Right.
planning for the
Archives.
We've talked in the past about the survey and that we're going to change it, so that's something we can discuss. We also talked about retiree benefit for health insurance, and then financial stewardship, our revenue impacts and changes from possible early pay discounts that has been suggested, as well as long-term capital planning for our major projects. So we don't have to do it now. If there's anything you want me to look up a little bit more, do a little research on before our December 12th meeting, I'm happy to do that. If there's other items, those, and we'll try to have an agenda that discusses these things. And
Let me ask you to remind us all of the upcoming dates. There's 3 meetings. I know we needed to juggle things. If you want to remind us so we can
Yep.
not make a mistake.
So tomorrow, we have a financial overview. So we will discuss 5-year financial forecast, potential capital projects that are currently in and not in that we may want to move those around.
Doug, I thought that was primarily as part of the onboarding process for the councilmen-elect. I'm happy to attend, I blocked the time off, but how do you see this as differently from when we've done a 5-year financial projection for the whole council?
I think it's going to be very similar to that. My intent is for all council members to be there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's tomorrow afternoon at,
So it's at noon. I know that food doesn't motivate everyone like it does me, but there might be pizza.
noon to 5. Okay.
And again, Jack and I are not,
You're not, yeah. You're always welcome.
when's the official date, off the council?
Officially, it's when the new ones are.
December 9th.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Good question. Okay, what's after?
Date 1.
19th.
That's day 1. December 9th is our regular meeting. So that'll be the organizational meeting, regular meeting, work session meeting. December 12th, which is that Friday, is our council-led retreat meeting. And then I think the more traditional retreat meeting that we've had in the past is January 21st.
I think that's what I saw, 121.
So that one,
The council retreat one on 12/12 runs from when, Jack? Doug, what's the time there? Is that the all-day one?
no, it's a partial day. But that's the January one, right? The December one, 9 to noon. So
9 to noon, and the other
Just the
one's
morning,
11:30
yeah.
to 8, right?
thank you.
They're all right here or next door? What did you do?
Yeah. So we'll keep you busy, but we want you to earn your pay, so.
Okay. All right. Any other topics or questions, issues? I did see in the paper, the town of Southern Pines is going to start letting golf carts on the roads. So I don't know how far they're going to go with allowing that, but
Good luck to them.
yeah. Good luck.
I
This-
thought there's a state law against them operating on state roads.
Well, we know that, but they'll learn that. Okay. Dr. Morgan.
If you allow me the last thing here, but
Absolutely. Get that last juice, squeeze it out of there.
I motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Adopted. Thank you. All right.